Oh, we're live, pal.
Yay! Hi, we're here. It's Friday, so that means it's time for the Hidden Gems podcast. Sometimes we pre record it, sometimes we do it live. It just depends on how busy things are, and this week is very busy. And I kind of like doing it live. I like the energy sometimes.
Yeah, I do as well. I'm honestly, I'm happy to see you, but I was a little worried because you've been in like a TIFF vortex for the past few days.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been intense. The Toronto International Film Festival, I'm part of the digital press. And even with all of the craziness, I've already seen 4 films. So it's pretty good, I'd say. Four and a half, actually. I've gotten about halfway through another one. So,
And
yeah.
I can't wait till my channel's big enough to where like I can go to TIFF or be a part of the digital part of it.
hmm Yeah, it is fun. I know we moan and groan, but it is also it can be stressful to cover the festivals, but it's also a blessing at the same time.
That's true.
Yes. So anyway, yeah, I'm excited to hopefully be able to see some really great films. I saw a documentary today on the uprising in Attica prison, which is very sobering. But it was an extremely well done documentary. And sometimes I was saying on Twitter today, sometimes I think the documentaries are almost the best part of festivals because they're not as try hard as some of the shows. They're just like, well, for the most part, they're just, they got a job to do and they do it and you enjoy it and I learned something. But some of the fiction at festivals can be trying so hard to be artistic and all that stuff.
In the words of Bill Maher, if you're wondering who the bad guy is, it's you.
That's right. So how have you been?
I've been doing pretty well. Had a bit of a, not for me, but my grandma had a bit of a health scare. She's fine.
Oh,
She's going to be okay. It's a non-COVID related sickness.
mhm.
She got tested. She's negative,
Oh,
but
that's good.
it was a pretty hairy couple of days. But she's gonna bounce right back. She's tougher than a $2 steak, and she's 82. Like I said, she before, like up until recently, she was in her garden like 4 hours a day. So I guess I shouldn't have been so worried. However,
Mhm.
she is getting older, and I've been so close to her. It's just the prospect of not having her around just scares me to death. But we dodged a bullet, and
No, that's good.
she's gonna be around for a long time.
I'll definitely keep her and your family in my prayers because I think that's a special relationship. I was
Thank you.
very close with both of my grandmas, so
Yeah, I'm super grateful to have been close to both my grandfathers and my grandmothers.
mhm.
They both lived. All of them lived in the area. Both
Nice.
my grandfathers are no longer with me, unfortunately,
hmm
but both my grandmothers are still kicking, and
Nice.
thank God for it.
Good. Well, we have the chat room open, so if anybody is watching, then put in your comments. We'd love to hear what you have to say, and we'll answer any questions. We have a time limit on this episode, so we'll have to answer anything that we can get to. But we are here for Hidden Gems, and this is the show every week where we talk about streaming services and the hidden gems on those services. Well, every once in a while, we like to do an episode where I give Ryan 5 movies to watch that I think he'll like, and then he gives 5 to me. So that's what this episode is. We've already done the Rachel Makes Ryan watch 2 weeks ago, and we had our streaming preview last week. So that was fun for the fall, for September and October. And we really enjoy doing those previews. So just let us know if you have any questions. There's also the super chat if anybody feels so inclined. And but let's get started. So, what was kind of your mythology behind picking these 5 movies?
Well, when when I pick my picks for Hidden Gems, my 5, I go into it looking like what would I like, and so this time around, I was just I have a good gauge of what what you, Rachel, kind of dig, but I have to work around the stuff that I pick. Like I don't have too many romantic movies in there, and obviously that's your forte. So it's just trying to get you out of the box, like not so out of the box to turn you off, but like out of, but relatively close to the box. And I think this time around, I think honestly, I'm proud of the choices that I made, because I think maybe the most near the knuckle one was The Old Dark House, but even then, it's a horror movie from the 30s. It's relatively tame, especially by today's standards. So I think on the whole, I think this whole list could be themed around stuff that I and Rachel can both like, even though it's probably not something she would go out of her way to see.
Yeah, you're not like recommending I watch a Rob Zombie film or something like that.
No, well, if I see The Devil's Rejects, I'll probably
Well, let's get started. What was the first film that you recommended for me?
So the first one that I chose was The Resurrection of Jake the Snake. This was on Amazon Prime. This is a documentary that is about former pro wrestler Jake the Snake Roberts. He wrestled for decades, I think 2 or 3 decades. He was around a while. And while he was very popular and he was very good at his job, he was a lost soul, and his soul was corrupted by substance abuse. And stories of his substance abuse were just, unfortunately, far too many. And this documentary chronicled Diamond Dallas Page, one of his friends and a former wrestler in his own right, resurrecting Jake the Snake and bringing him back to a normal life, helping him fight his demons, and things like that. If you follow me for a while, you know that I love wrestling. I just watched the AEW show last weekend. It was phenomenal, and I've been watching it since 2009, and I love it. And really, the sad part about wrestling is that a lot of the wrestlers meet premature deaths, and a lot of it has to do with drug abuse. It's sad, but it's also true. Jake the Snake Roberts is one of the rare people that kicked their demons, and honestly is doing better now than he was like 10 years ago. And it's really a miracle that he's even here to begin with. So, Rachel, what did you think about this one?
I was going to ask you what was his current situation, because I'm not sure when this movie was made.
This was made, I think, in 2014 or 15. And right now, he's actually working for All Elite Wrestling as a manager and working backstage. He's been clean for a few years now, which is just amazing. And he's in he looks 10 years younger. Like, if you look at a picture of him, say, in like 1999 and look at him now, it's almost like he was older in 99 when he's older now. But looking at him now and looking at him 20 years ago, it's almost night and day. So it's just, it's one of the things where it's like drugs is just a horrible business. It really is.
Yeah, that's really incredible. It's very difficult to do that. I've lost 2 cousins to addiction, and neither of them, they both tried really hard, but neither of them could kick it. I mean, my cousin Raquel had a pretty long run of sobriety, and she ended up getting married, having 2 children, but she ended up relapsing and ended up passing away. And so it's very heartwarming to see that somebody could make it, and it was heartwarming as well to just see that his friends, really saved his life and rallied behind him. That was really neat to see.
And it's still a little true to this day, but back when Jake the Snake was in his prime, those wrestlers were on the road 300 days a year. They were wrestling every day of the week and twice on Sunday. So it wasn't like he had access to rehab. It was like you had to make it to the next town. You had to get to the pay window. And so it's sad that Jake the Snake got as bad as it did. But if you know anything about like his past and his personal life, it's a tragedy, but all we can do now is just celebrate that he's still with us. He's better than ever, and we can only just be grateful that he's still here. Because if you all want to do like a supplement watch the episode of Vice's Dark Side of the Ring on Jake the Snake and his father Grizzly Smith. Because whoa, it's super dark, because Jake the Snake actually has two siblings, or had two siblings in wrestling, Rock and Robin, who was wrestling in the 80s, as well as the wrestler Sam Houston. And they all got involved in drugs at some point, and they all rehabbed. So they all have happy endings, I suppose.
Hmm. So one thing I'm curious about, because I literally know nothing about wrestling, like zero. And so I know that there's a certain degree of the wrestling is like planned and coordinated. It's an event, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So how did they like determine in advance, like so-and-so is going to be a winner?
That's usually how it works. There are some occasions where it's written down in theory. However, sometimes there's an issue of backstage politics saying, "Hey, I know I was supposed to lose, but I'm making all the money here. I think I should win." When in reality, it should be a lot simpler than it is. However, sometimes it's the case of egos and politics and crap stirring. It's honestly a big quagmire. I'll explain. I'll explain someday. But let's just say, in theory, it should be on paper like, okay, this is the finish that we're going with. However, there are so many stories of people politicking, saying, "Hey, I should win," and people being like, "You know what? You really should." And just honestly, we'd be here all night.
But yeah, no, I thought this was solid. I thought it was a good documentary. I thought that it was good to see his friends come together and help him, and not just for like an intervention. Like they were there for the long haul, like helping him. They gave a lot of their time,
Yes,
to making sure this was successful.
Especially Diamond Dallas Page, who I officially petitioned the Pope that he should be made a saint, because that man is just, if you meet him in real life, like he gets, like Jake the Snake said on an interview with Joe Rogan, he gets high off of helping people. And it's the truth. You should see some of DDP's success stories. He helped a paralyzed former paratrooper not only lose weight, but gain his mobility back. Like he is just incredible. So anyway, long story short, if you all haven't seen The Resurrection of Jake the Snake, I can't recommend it enough. It'll make you cry, but it's a very satisfying watch nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, and that's coming from somebody who, like I said, knows nothing about wrestling, zero. So, and I still enjoyed it for what it is, especially if you have somebody in your family that's dealt with addiction. I think it's definitely going to be especially poignant. So what was the next movie that you recommended to me?
So the next one I gave you was on the Peacock Network, and it was Tower Heist. Now, I recommended this one because I thought it would be really fun to see what you thought about it. And I know that this was directed by Brett Ratner. Let's just get that out of the way. And the whole thing with him, I'm not celebrating him. I like this movie regardless of the fact that he directed it. I remember watching this and just around Thanksgiving time, 2011, and I really enjoyed it. And I just thought, kind of like a whole salty and sweet thing, I thought the Jake the Snake one would be super heavy, so Tower Heist would be a little more on the lighter side. And what did you think about it?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun little romp.
Exactly.
Heist movie. It's not like a great movie, but it's like it's enjoyable.
Yeah, it was the first time that I really seen Eddie Murphy in a really long time, because I think maybe he went on like a sabbatical or something, but like he's coming back now with Coming to America, but in Tower Heist, I remember there's discussion of, oh, Eddie Murphy's back, and I'm like, where did he go? Did he leave? But he was one of my favorite parts of the movie, the dynamic between he and Ben Stiller. I thought they worked really well together.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird cast. Like, just it's a collection of actors you wouldn't think would be kind of combined together for a
Yeah.
movie.
Ben
You know?
Stiller, Eddie Murphy, Matthew Broderick, the girl from Precious. I can't think of her name, but she was,
Gabourey Sidibe, I think.
yeah, her.
Yeah, and Casey Affleck,
Alan Alda.
and and Judd Hirsch is in here from Marshall Show, Michael Pena. I mean, it's just a very random cast of people.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, because like Casey Affleck, I'm just so used to seeing him in just really indies now.
Yeah.
I feel like it's all that he hardly does anymore. And and then, Matthew Broderick, he doesn't do that many movies anymore. I mean, last year he had one that was actually pretty good called Dirt. And it was about him, and he played this this professor who specializes in like decay and how things evolve, and like a biology professor. And there's a man who is a strict Orthodox Jew as character who becomes like fixated on whether his wife will be able, he was passed away, whether she was buried correctly, and whether she'll be able to go up to heaven. Anyway, and so he goes and talks to the Matthew Broderick character, and they become friends. And it is a sweet movie. It's kind of gross, but it's sweet. But anyway, and so I saw him in that, but it just doesn't seem like he does that many movies anymore. And so it was interesting to see him in this. And Alan Alda's usually such a nice guy. This was weird a little bit.
Not in this movie, no.
No, he's not. That's for sure.
Yeah, he's kind of like the Bernie Madoff stand-in.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And Téa Leoni plays the investigator in this, and she is sometimes a bit annoying. She was annoying in Jurassic Park 3. She was annoying in Spanglish, even though I like both those movies, fine. But she actually wasn't annoying here. It's like, yay.
Yeah, and I officially petitioned that this be a Thanksgiving movie. The heist in question takes place on Thanksgiving Day during the St. Patrick's Day parade. Mm-hmm. So, like, say, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, it's Happy Thanksgiving, Charlie Brown, and Tower Heist.
Yeah.
The perfect Thanksgiving trilogy.
Yeah, and when they are having, there's a scene where you have Matthew Broderick hanging from the hood of the car.
I do not want to die.
That made me a little like, if you have any kind of, it's like, oh my gosh, they did a good job with that, like making it feel like, ooh. I haven't felt such a sense of height since that Joseph Gordon-Levitt movie was on The Wire.
Oh, The Walk. Yeah,
I have to take my wires up. But it was a fun heist movie, and there's a grand tradition of heist movies in cinema, and I enjoyed this one. Yeah, it was good. And I agree with you about Eddie Murphy and Ben Stiller. They were funny together.
You were the little seizure boy who kept having those seizures. I only had the seizure ones.
I could have used even more of them, to be honest, and more of them together.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. What is the next choice that you had?
So the next choice I gave you was a sports documentary, and it's one of my favorites. It's Michigan versus Ohio State, the rivalry. And I chose this because I figured this would be a pretty easy watch for you. And with Tiff coming, I figured you would appreciate that. And I also, this is a rivalry that's pretty close to me. My grandfather, like I brought up, was born in the Michigan area, so he's a Wolverine. He married my grandmother, who went to school and was raised in the Ohio area, Ohio State.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so this rivalry has been fairly close to my family for a while, and I think I think this documentary nailed the rivalry about as good as you could possibly ask for, and it's still
Yeah.
going. And Ohio State has been a little more dominant now than Michigan, but it's so evenly matched that it's like, oh, Michigan's got the upper hand than Ohio State, and it's like everything in between. It has many things that I like. Football, football documentaries. Liev Schreiber is the narrator. He's always great. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty run-of-the-mill, like a 30. It felt like a 30 for 30, and I wouldn't say it's like one of the better of those kind. Like, I guess I like ones that have a little bit more, maybe of a kind of a narrative to them. Like when the documentary would get into like particularly telling like individual coaches' stories or
Yeah.
individual games, then it was a little bit better. But I still overall enjoyed it. It wasn't that long, and it, it's always interesting. And I feel like all those kinds of things that were put on hold for 2020, I feel like I just miss them. Even if it's not something I was invested in before, it's like, oh, we need to get that back. We need to get all of that back.
Yeah,
So,
and I do agree with you. The documentary really hits like third and fourth gear when it especially gets into the Woody Hayes stuff, Woody Hayes versus Bo Schembechler, and then the whole Earl Bruce side of things, and how his team beat Michigan on his last game as their head coach, and I love the one where it's in the 50s where it just snowed all night, and then they basically had to play in just one big iceberg, and Michigan beat them, and then that section is punctuated because the Ohio coach was named Wes Fessler. The expert was like, and Fessler never coached another day. And it's like, whoa, they take this thing serious. And while I'm thinking about it, I did want to bring this up. Bo Schembechler, who they interviewed for this and was one of the more important Michigan coaches of all time, he died shortly after this wrapped filming and premiered. So the Bo Schembechler you see is like pretty much his last public appearance of any kind. So it's a little eerie. However, he's a legend in the Michigan area, or especially in Ann Arbor. So it's a nice way for him to go out.
Yeah. Yeah, they mentioned that in the documentary, and they have a whole sequence where it's all about all of the players that they get in from Ohio for Michigan. That was funny.
And vice versa, Michigan going to Ohio State.
Yeah, but it seemed especially they would cherry pick people from Ohio for Michigan. That was more and then them talking about the way that they would be treated once they went back to Ohio. And there was even one who was like that his dad basically said, "No, are you crazy? You're going to Ohio. That's not happening."
That was Chris Spielman. That
was good. So yeah, I used to watch honestly more sports than I do now. I used to watch fairly frequently, and especially when I was going to college, then you get kind of involved, and we have a big rivalry here in Utah between BYU and Utah has won almost every time. But they have way more scholarships and things like that at Utah, so we don't BYU doesn't focus as much on football as other schools, but so the rivalry is a bit one-sided, but hey, and the BYU just I think it's called the Big 12. They just, because they were independent for a long time, and just next year they're going to be part of, I think, the Big 12. I think is what it's called.
I did hear about that.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting to see what goes on there. So I just, once I started my podcast, I just let sports go. I just didn't have time for it anymore. And
sure. Those 30 million Hallmark movies weren't going to cover themselves.
Yes. But I do love the Olympics, since I love covering that. And I do love 30 for 30s and sports docs. So I'm a big sucker for them. In some ways, I like them better than sports.
Yeah. And HBO is secretly like really really good at making sports documentaries. There's some on HBO Max. They're not even on HBO Max that I really love. Like there's this one called Back Nine at Cherry Hills where it's about the final of the 1960 U.S. Open golf tournament. I've been a golfer my whole life, so that whole documentary just is just really excellent. It's not on there, which is really sad, but hopefully they'll add it someday.
Yeah.
They made a documentary on Larry Bird versus Magic Johnson, which was phenomenal. So HBO is secretly like really good at making sports documentaries.
Yeah, I liked the one they did on Tiger Woods. That was interesting.
Oh yeah.
I watched that last year. They also have one. It's not like it's a little bit different, but they have a series called The 100-Foot Wave this last summer about Grant McNamara and his search off the coast of Portugal. They find this place that has these huge waves, and their strategy for figuring out how they can ride the 100-foot wave. It's a really good little series. So I feel like surfing. So cool. Very good. All right. What is your next pick?
So my next pick to you, and this was the one where I was super nervous how you're going to take this one. It's The Old Dark House. This is from Canopy. It was directed by James Whale, who directed the original Frankenstein, and it also stars Boris Karloff, which I'm sure that was just a coincidence. But the movie tells the story of a group of travelers who get stuck in a storm, and the only place they see is, well, the Old Dark House, and well, horrors ensue. I recommended this because I think that Boris Karloff is secretly a very good actor. However, he was always typecast as like these mute brutes, like Frankenstein or here. And yeah, he is a mute brute here, but he's really good. But I always like to champion non-Frankenstein Boris Karloff movies, and The Old Dark House is one of them. So how did you like it?
I liked it. I had never heard of this. I mean, there's a lot of horror movies that I haven't seen, but most of them I've heard of. Like I haven't seen Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street or a lot of the Universal Monster movies I haven't seen, but I've heard of them. I literally had never heard of this movie until you suggested it.
Yeah, the Universal Monsters are classics, obviously, but there's like another slew of horror movies that exist like beneath the surface that no one's heard of and are secretly great, like this one, or Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde with Spencer Tracy, or Return of the Vampire. And I'm going to talk about it more in my Scary Mania series in October, so that's upcoming. But like I said, I'm glad you really liked this. I'm super glad.
The only time I'm generally actually pretty open to scary movies when they're things like ghosts, supernatural creatures, like I love Jaws, and things like that, aliens, those kind of things I enjoy. What I don't like is when there's like murderers or rapists, particularly rapists.
I got
so I don't watch those. And I don't think things like the Saw movies are for me, like torture. I don't want any torture. So those are like the things I don't like. But I like a good sort of haunted house movie or spooky movie. And I enjoyed this. I mean, Charles Lawton, he's a great actor.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And he kind of steals every scene that he's in as the owner of this house.
Alpha Potato.
Yes. And it's just, why do you think that this has just been kind of forgotten? Just doesn't have any of the big names like a Clark Gable or something like that?
That may be the case, but like I said, I guess the Universal Monster movies were so well renowned that it's like everybody was thinking, oh, it was just those series of movies and nothing else. But if you like peek a couple layers down, there are like so many great horror movies of the 30s and even into the 40s when things were starting to take a bit of a downturn because of the war. Like if you look at like say The Old Dark House or the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde or other movies like that, you'll find that they're secretly really good. Like there's There's a zombie movie, the first zombie movie actually, called White Zombie, starring Bela Lugosi. It was a completely independent movie, and the only reason people know about it is because Rob Zombie named his first band after it, White Zombie.
Huh, yeah, I've never heard of that one either.
Yeah, and fun fact about the Old Dark House, the woman who plays Margaret is Gloria Stewart, and if that name may sound familiar, she was older Rose in Titanic. She threw the jewel off the side of the boat.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Gloria Stewart. No way.
Yeah, she was an actress for a very long time.
Mm-hmm. Huh. Yeah, I liked the lady of the house. I think it's Rebecca. I think is her name. The kind of shrunk, the hunched over, weird lady.
Oh yeah, Eva Moore.
Yeah, she was very good. She was very creepy, very effective.
Yeah, and so, like I said, I can't recommend this movie enough because it's all about atmosphere. There's no score. It's just these people in this house and nothing but a steady stream of wind and rain. It's like the perfect midnight movie, if you will.
Yeah, they do a really good job creating atmosphere and tone. It kind of reminded me of other haunted house movies like The Haunting.
Yeah,
good.
That's a pretty apt comparison right there.
And it's the kind of movie I think you struggle making now because people would be like, "Oh, it's so cliche," but when it's done right, it's fun.
So first Night of the Living Dead and now The Old Dark House. I have converted to 2 horror movies. I've done it.
Another one I love is The Others. Have you seen The Others?
Yes, you recommended it for one of our HBO episodes.
I love that movie. I think it's very good, very effective. So very cool. Okay, what's the last film you recommended for me?
So the last one, and I'm honestly surprised you had never seen this before, it was The Three Musketeers from Disney+. The one that starred Kiefer Sutherland, Charlie Sheen, Oliver Platt, and Chris O'Donnell, as well as Tim Curry, who is very much alive still. I recognize this may not be the best Disney has ever made, but I've always really gotten a kick out of this movie. If anything, it's just that all the sword fights look like they're done on set. They're looking like they're actually doing it on actual sets, which would never be done today. It looks like the stunts are being done as well. There's so many exciting scenes, especially with the carriage scene. And I love the scene where the Musketeers kidnap, or I guess carriage nap, the Cardinal's carriage, and they drink all his alcohol, and they're like, "The wine is delicious, the champagne is excellent. Remind me to send the Cardinal a note." It's just, it looks like all the actors in this movie are just having the time of their lives. I hope you enjoyed it.
I did enjoy it. I had seen it way back, like when it came out. I'd seen it before, but I hadn't put it on my letterbox. That's why, because it had been so long. So it was fun to revisit it, and I think that it's kind of funny. I wouldn't be surprised if this was greenlit after the success of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. If it felt very similar to me,
it would make a lot of sense. Yes.
And this does have some surprising elements for a Disney film. Like there's quite a bit of sensuality in this film.
Oh yeah.
Yes. And there are some violent moments. I think it's interesting to see what they do with it now. Although you could make that same claim maybe about something like some of the Pirates movies have some of the same elements, so maybe not. But there were a few moments where I was like, I don't think this would be in a Disney film now.
No, most assuredly not.
Also, this is the most American sounding Musketeers. It's kind of like Robin Hood in that way. Like in Robin Hood, Kevin Costner makes no attempt at a British accent.
These guys are the most American Frenchmen I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, all of them. Charlie Sheen, Kiefer Sutherland, and Chris O'Donnell. They all sound like they're from California.
Tim Curry may be a bit of a bigger sinner because he's British and he makes no attempt at French either.
Yeah. But I guess for some reason the like British accent is like okay anywhere in Europe. Like in Hallmark movies when they're in some mysterious country and they're doing like a princess movie, then they just give them British accents. Always. Yeah, it's like Genovia, Oh, we gotta give her a British accent. So
Yeah, one of my favorite parts of the Three Musketeers is Tim Curry as the Cardinal. He looks like he's having the time of his life doing this. My favorite scene in the movie is when he captures the king and the queen to be, and then he's like, I shall ascend to my throne with the queen, of course. And the queen's like, I would rather die. And then he just leaps up and is like, that could be arranged. And it's like he's chewing all the scenery, and God bless him for it.
Yeah, he is definitely, like you said, chewing the scenery. That's a good way to describe it. He is having a great time, and that's what Tim Curry can bring to you in a movie. And I definitely prefer him in this than Alan Rickman in Prince of Thieves, because that goes over the line to me, where you're having characters like what they do to Maid Marian. It's not my favorite. And with him attacking her and everything, and it starts to be less fun. Whereas here, it's never not fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think I would prefer this much more over Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, which is not my favorite.
And my favorite scene of the whole movie is when D'Artagnan's about to be beheaded, and the Musketeers are there in secret, and you first see Charlie Sheen, and he's like, "For it is all for one, and one for all," and you see like just his eyes, and you're like, "Oh, D'Artagnan's getting out of this." And then the executioner's Oliver Platt, and he's like, "I got this axe from the governor of Tokyo," and it's like, there's Oliver Platt. Now where's Kiefer? And Kiefer's taking out the driver. It's so much fun. I get that this movie is not necessarily great, but I don't know. It's just a Disney movie that I just have a fondness for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's good. And you have Julie Delpy in this. And I feel like this is one of her only like really commercial films. Like usually she does things like the Before movies and stuff like that. So I don't know. It was just like, oh, look at her.
No, that's interesting.
Yeah. So that was cool to have her. I mean, I guess they at least have somebody who speaks French in this movie. But yeah, this is a lot of fun. If you just want a swashbuckling adventure, then here you go. You've got a fun little movie. And I agree with you about the sword fighting. It's all really well done. And now all of the leads have a lot of swagger to them.
Yeah, that's very true. No, Kiefer Sutherland had pretty much all of the swagger you could ever ask for in the early 90s.
Yeah. So out of your 5 picks, which one would you say is your favorite of the 5?
For importance, I would say Resurrection of Jake the Snake, but for fun, I think I would say Three Musketeers. However, I love all of these movies equally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that my favorite is probably The Dark Old House. I think it's the best overall movie.
Wow, I'm surprised. Like pleasantly surprised, but surprised.
There you go. I'm an enigma. What do you guess? I just think it's, as far as all the pieces, I think it's the best made movie of the group. But I think that probably maybe Three Musketeers would be my next favorite. The only thing with the Resurrection of Jake the Snake was maybe I think it could have been trimmed a little bit. Maybe it was just a little bit too long, but that's I still liked it. And Tower Heist was good, so it was a fun group. So thanks for getting me to watch them. That was always it's unpredictable what you're gonna pick, so I like that. That's fun. So thank you for your picks, and thanks for coming on this Hidden Gems. We have to rush off, and we're going to be doing our next patron watch along. So if you haven't signed up for the Patreon, you should definitely sign up because it's going to be fun. This month we have actress Brittany Bristow, who's really fun in a whole bunch of Hallmark and other movies. She's great. And anyway, so it's going to be very fun to talk to her and get her. We're watching Love, Romance, and Chocolate, which she has a supporting role in. And it's one I really enjoy. So that will be fun. But yeah, take a look at all the information's in the description. And you sign up for the Patreon, and we sure appreciate it. But Ryan, where can people find you?
They can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at RyanCam20. Then there's, of course, my YouTube channel, which is just called Ryan Cam. I want to give a quick thank you to everyone who checked out my Polytechnic review. It was a very difficult movie to watch, so I'm glad you all checked it out and liked that review. My Villeneuve series will be continuing with my review for Incendies, which I was not prepared. I really wasn't. And then Prisoners after that. And then this coming Sunday, let me check my board. Sunday will be my first reaction to the Ghibli film From Up on Poppy Hill. So a lot of content coming to the channel. So if you haven't checked me out, please do.
Yeah, y'all should check it out. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So make sure to check that out. Also at the Hallmarkies podcast, a lot of fun we have over there. So make sure to take a look. And thanks so much, everybody. We'll talk to you all later. Bye.
Bye.